Perspectives on Christmas is the 9th episode of the 5th season of Frasier. This is directed by David Lee, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I always love festive episodes, and this one is no exception. It has a really brilliant narrative structure, and it actually starts out with Martin getting a massage, and he says that this has been the worst Christmas ever, and then we have the flashback. And we're in Frasier's apartment. Martin and Frasier are working on the tree. Niles is on the sofa. Daphne comes in with Eddie. Christmas decorations everywhere. Absolutely stunning. And Daphne remarks that Eddie tried to go into a church that they were walking past. And Frasier commented that he had the same thing when he was walking Eddie. And when in the kitchen alone with Frasier, Martin confesses that Eddie had a reason to know the church. And this is because he had been asked if Eddie could be used in a Christmas pageant, and Martin had no problems with this, but then he was roped into being a shepherd, and then instead he had to step in as a wise man, and he has to sing a song, and he's really nervous about this, and obviously didn't want to tell anybody, but Frasier suggests very kindly that Martin is actually a good singer. He's maybe just a bit rusty. And in the next scene, I absolutely love it. Martin is practicing singing Oh Holy Night, which I have to say is my favourite Christmas song. So I rather enjoyed that. Niles is on the piano, Frasier is giving Martin some direction, and when he gets to a specific point in the song, he's basically screeching, and it's fantastic. I really thoroughly enjoyed that scene. We then have Daphne getting her massage, and then we have her flashback. And it's initially the same scene with Daphne coming in with Eddie. But what I really like is that the dialogue is slightly different. It's the similar concept of Niles remarking about the mistletoe, then Frasier and Martin in the kitchen. But Daphne's remembering it a little bit differently, and I like that. I think that's very realistic. If you ask several people to recall a conversation that they might not have had any reason to remember, such as Niles remarking about the mistletoe, everybody's going to have a slightly different memory of that, and I love that. And it also helps to show that we also have very different readings of the situation, as Daphne was reading into this something very different to what was the reality. And that's because she was really worried about Martin's health. And actually, when you look at it, it's understandable that she would think there's something wrong with Martin's health. He's then on the phone talking about meeting Jesus, and she ultimately ends up giving him a sweater for Christmas. And he says that he can now die a happy man because it's the sweater he really wanted, which of course further makes Daphne believe that Martin is dying. And when he said he's on his way out and Daphne asks him how long he's got and he says about 20 minutes, I thought that was very funny. They then realise he's not dying. They end up going into this big argument. Eddie's on the sofa, and then Niles comes in looking a wreck, and then we have Niles getting a massage, and initially Niles is asleep imagining Daphne, and then we get his flashback, and he is stuck in an elevator in Frasier's building, and there are some interesting characters in there with him, and it'll be quite a long time for somebody to come and get them out once the elevator is stuck, but somebody can climb up through the hatch. I feel like that's unrealistic. I can't imagine any maintenance person would tell somebody not employed to fix the elevators to climb up the hatch, but nevertheless, Niles somewhat reluctantly goes up there, falls into a pool of grease, manages to open the elevator doors. Everybody except Niles gets out, and the next thing we know, he's on the floor of the elevator with this giant Christmas tree and crawling out, and it's very dramatic. But honestly, if that was me, I would be kind of traumatized as well. Ross then comes into the apartment and throws Frasier's Christmas gift down on the floor with a very bitter Merry Christmas. And then we get Ross's massage, and her flashback begins at Cafe Nervosa, and Frasier actually gets a call from Ross's mother because she'd phoned the station. They'd forwarded the call to Frasier's phone. And Ross is clearly worrying about a lot of things at the moment. There were a couple of comments from Niles before he left Cafe Nervosa about her eating habits. And when Ross was at the front of Cafe Nervosa getting her coffee or whatever she was drinking, Frasier had a quick word with her mother, just telling her that Ross had put on a few pregnancy pounds. She was feeling a little bit insecure about her weight and her image, so maybe don't see anything too insensitive And then Frasier managed to end the call before Roz came back. And then Roz comes back to the table and she comments that she's really nervous about telling her mother she's pregnant. And how I gasped. I absolutely loved that, because Frasier has just said something that clearly wouldn't have made any sense, and definitely a very dramatic moment. Roz has not yet been made aware of what Frasier just said. First of all, they have to dress up as Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus. Frasier had roped them into doing this, and it's a very dramatic scene. Roz is acting very unlike Mrs. Claus, but it develops really well. It plays out really well, and then we cut back to the apartment, and everything is absolutely crazy. And, of course, Roz throws down the Christmas gift. Martin comes in saying that he hates singing and he hates Christmas, and he's going to bed. He's dressed in his pageant costume. Apparently, Eddie got hold of the doll playing the baby Jesus, and it was just absolute chaos. And the entire scene is just very realistic, actually. Very realistic of a lot of people coming together at Christmas with a lot of different emotions. And Frasier ends up telling them, "Stop arguing. I'm going to give you my Christmas gift." And the gift was going to be that he was going to sit down with each and every one of them so that he could tell them exactly what they meant to him. And they all agreed that was a terrible gift, so Frasier ended up getting them massages, and that's how the massages happened. I thought there was a really brilliant narrative structure, and I think it handled everything really well without ever becoming repetitive, even though at some points we're getting different perspectives of the same scenes. It never felt stale. I thought everything worked really well. Really funny episode. A lot of Christmas things, Christmas decorations, obviously Christmas music. It's just a beautiful episode. The entire thing for me is a highlight, but if I were to choose personal highlights, I think everything with Martin, definitely, and absolutely Roz revealing she hadn't told her mother yet. I thought that was brilliant. But as a whole, from start to finish, I thought Perspectives on Christmas was a really solid episode of Frasier, a delightful Christmas episode, and one that I'm sure I will always really thoroughly enjoy.